Hello and welcome to the SC Playbook podcast, the NRL Round 15 edition, proudly brought to you by Morgan's Choice SCW. I'm your host, Tim Williams. We're coming off a round of highs and lows, but particularly more highs than lows, I think, for most Supercoaches out there. It was absolutely raining tons in round 14, so I hope your side was on the better end of a lot of those tons in what loomed as being a very, very tough round for Supercoaches. Here to talk through it with me, if you're watching on YouTube, you can already see him already because we're on the wide angle tonight. Random Stats Guy. Rando, welcome back, mate.
Mate, thanks for having me on board. Thanks coming off a long weekend here. Don't count how many times I sip my beer on the wide angle. I used to get away with it with like Desi being in between us, but no, thank you for having me back.
The reason for the wide angle, now public holidays, fantastic things all around, unless you're in an NRL or a sporting content creation job where not a lot changes, it just pushes things back. So the Bloke in a Bar podcast, usually recorded on Monday that I jump on, was on today. We went for about 4.5 hours, so straight into team list, straight into pod prep. Matty the Waterboy, as a result, doing overs for us as always. He's editing that and chopping up reels and doing all sorts of things. So, Rando, just you and me today, mate. Ready to step up to the plate?
Yep, ready to rip in, mate. Ready to rip in.
Exciting times. And, mate, how'd the side go on the weekend?
The Cowboys or my Supercoach team both went pretty poorly. Both went pretty poorly. I think just having Scott Drinkwater as my captain, I think, summed up the whole week, unfortunately. Yeah, look, I was in the same boat. And the Stallions, 1,040 points, and again, just cannot get a read on the weekly scores at the moment. Or when lockout finishes, when the round finishes, you're going to go up or you're going to go down. And I thought with the 1040, I'm like, it's not too bad. Throughout the round, I thought I've missed Latrell, I've missed Lomax, I've missed Fanua Blake, a lot of these big boys. I had Tyron Wishy, the godsend, who he saved my score. I had Jaden Brayley was benched on kickoff. I had Josh Curran injured. Granted, Curran is about 50% owned amongst top-ranked teams, so not alone on that. And ended up dropping about 1,500 odd spots to 10,000, just over 10,000 overall. So just not quite happening at the moment, Rando, but we move on. Absolutely. I mean, just having, AFB was just enough for me, but then seeing people with Lomax, seeing the team of the week this week, just made me so sad. I mean, I don't know how he'll go next week, but far out some big scores in the centre Ws. If you had the right players there, you would have done really well. Yeah, so there's a big spread of scores. So, look, happy with how the team's sitting this week, but Latrell was just the big one there. I was very keen to get him in, but I thought, you know what, he's just every chance he's playing Origin and watch him build at that 150 ON. Well, every chance to play Origin, but I probably still would have taken the 150 and 300 as a potential skipper. So, but yeah, mate, the Drinky captaincy, an absolute killer, but not to worry. We move on. Mate, the SC Playbook Unlimited group, this gets better and better every week, and I have so much joy looking at this each round. The entire top 10 ranked overall of NRL Supercoach are in our SC Playbook Unlimited League. Wow. We've also got 19 of the top 20, so freaking firing there. Slippery, coached by Martin, back up to top spot, the 2011 champ. So aiming to become the first Supercoacher to win 2 titles. Exciting times there. Also on our late mail, if you enjoyed on our Twitter and on our Instagram accounts this season, been doing the late mail, the 24-hour cutoffs. Of course, Adam Styles looking after that for us has been an absolute champion with it. Stylesy out this week and out next week. So stepping in Daniel Lakey from NRL Supercoach Talk, the OGs of NRL Supercoach online content. Lakey stepped up, so a massive thank you to him for that. He'll be doing it again this weekend coming up before the return of Stylesy after a much needed freshen up. Guys, the SC Playbook subscription package dropped to $30 for our entire content for the remainder of the NRL Supercoach season. If you would like to join the SC Playbook community and get amongst our premium content, including the world-famous WhatsApp group, check out our subscription page. Just head to scplaybook.com.au and find the subscription tab in the menu on the site. Not only do you get a ton of extra content with that, but you'll be supporting the podcast for everything that goes into creating all the content across the year. Now, on today's show, Rando, we have Team List Tuesday analysis. The big guns have returned. Nicho, Hynes, hallelujah. Sean Johnson, Dylan Edwards, the hot topics for the show. Do we lock and load on Cody Walker? Rando's stat deep dive. You are the king of the stats, mate. Is it time for Ronaldo Mulitalo? The stats say yes.
drop our round 15 trade and skipper plans. Listener questions to wrap it up. Looking at a big one. Which fullbacks are our primary targets for the run home? Now let's start with Team List Tuesday. Nicho Hynes, he was rested after Origin. He returns. Daniel Atkinson drops out. Did you hold on to Nicho because plenty sold last week? It was a big decision to make. What'd you end up doing?
I sold out a couple of weeks ago, moved on, and now haven't really looked back in the time being. So no Nicho at the moment, which makes me scared. But as long as I can just guide through these next couple of games, get him back for the run home, that's where I'm saving my cash.
I held firm on Nicho. I am of the belief that he won't be in Origin for Game 2. I think Mitchy Moses will come in there. Look, we know that you're a dirty Queenslander, but if you take your bias out of it, do you think Nicho's in camp for Game 2 or in around the team? What are your thoughts?
I think he gets one more go. I think Madge will stay strong with Nicho. I think Suaalii, his right centre goes off. He can't really control that. Once Suaalii went off, it was just an absolute debacle watching the game live and just seeing how unorganised they were. Bunch of all new combinations. So I think he's going to pick and stick Madge with his first go. I just don't know halfback carousel. Hasn't worked in the past for New South Wales. So I'm hoping they keep strong with Nicho.
My logic behind it, and it is not Supercoach bias, although it does influence it a little bit, is just that I believe that Mitch Moses was probably the first choice halfback. I don't say that with confidence, but I reckon he was. So it was more an injury-related thing. The fact that he didn't get in a game in round 12 before Origin selection, or before the teams were named, I should say. He came out and had that one game, killed it, was okay against the Doggies, probably didn't close it out, but had some good enough moments. So I reckon Nicho potentially drops out there, making him a very nice little hold, hoping to, anyway. A lot of people looking at his break-even as well. I think it was 190 last week. It's gone up over 200 now, and people are saying what sort of happened there. People far more intelligent than I will be able to describe it a little bit better, but they have the magic number, they refer to it as, and that is basically the number that dictates the break-evens for each player. And this magic number doesn't stay the same for each week. So I know that on a week where there's lots of high scores, like the weekend just being in some big tons, generally speaking, players' break-evens increase, or if across the board it's just a low scoring round, they'll decrease that little bit. So didn't play, and that's why the number changed on Nicho Hynes. Mate, at the Cowboys, your Cowboys, Reece Robson, Murray Taulagi, both back. Kuli Kefu, Fini Fuiaki to the bench. At the Bunnies, Cam Murray is back, and he's playing off the bench. Kevin Kalamatangi stays in the middle where he's been big for them the last couple of weeks. A big one here, Abby Coruscant moved to halfback. Lachlan Galvin is out injured. This is significant for Supercoach because plenty of Supercoaches held Galvin as around 16 and around 19 number. Now, Aiden Caesar also returns at 5'8", dealing with a broken bone in his finger or something. Lockie Galvin said to be 1 week injury, but looms as being potential 2 weeks, and with a couple of juicy little 5'8" and halfback options, it's made it a little bit interesting. So I suppose firstly, Abby Coruscant had a halfback. How do we see this impacting him and Lockie Galvin?
It's going to be huge. I think Appy's been playing really well on hooker the last 3 games, a 3-round average of 75 coming into this week. But he does like playing at halfback. He played 2 games of halfback last year for the Tigers, scored 66 and 79 respectively in those games. So he can fill in at halfback and he can score big there for the Tigers of all teams as well. Coming up against the Titans could be a good opportunity him for score points. So I'd be keeping him at the moment. In terms of Lockie Galvin, well, his stocks have dropped significantly. Looking at the live trade outs, almost 6,000 Supercoaches trading him out already. They are jumping off the Galvin train.
Yeah, so Appy is certainly one that I've got my eye on in that hooking slot. 555k, 62 points per game average, bounced back to a bit of form lately. He's the 6th most traded in player. That break-even is 43, so I don't really need to go early on him. Particularly, I don't think he plays Origin, but he'll be in conversations there somewhere. You never know. So if you were to buy him and he was to get named in Origin, you'd be like, okay, that was a waste of time. But we're looking at the hooker slot, and there's a question on it a little bit later, so I'll hold off. But I do think it looks like a good purchase, and I don't mind the idea of going on him this week because, as I said, probably very unlikely for Origin. And Lockie Galvin, who is, as you said, the most traded out player at 551k, an average of 57 per game, break-even of 64. It's left us in a tricky situation because we don't know a lot about that injury. So I'm tempted to hold because if he does come back next week, he plays 16 and 19 and he's been rock solid all season. So granted not great on the weekend, but the Tigers also got belted in that one. So yeah, pretty tempted I think to hold Galvin, but if we do get information later in the week, I can see the merit in moving him on to a few popular options. Mate, Adam Dewey also named on the extended bench there. We'll be surprised if he came in this fixture, but you would think that in the next couple of weeks, if he can get some time in New South Wales Cup under the belt with the halves injuries, that he'll come into contention at some point. Sean Johnson back for the Warriors. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck named on the extended bench. Still no Ryan Pappenhausen for the Melbourne Storm. Good news for Suafailongo owners. No Joey Lussick on the bench for the Eels, although I believe that was the same up until game day last week. Brendan Hands ended up playing about 67 minutes, but just one to monitor there, which is not ideal if he does come onto the bench. Big one here at the Roosters. Connor Watson returns from injury to stake his claim for an origin spot. Terrell May moves to the bench, which is not the worst thing of all time. We probably expected it with Lindsay Collins and co back. And Brandon Smith is out. Connor Watson, an option, sneaky option.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do like what he is showing, especially in his last 3 games before his injury. He was averaging 88. I know that people would look at his average now, it says 63, but the last 3 games really coming into his own. Gets that opportunity with Brandon Smith completely out of the lineup to really have an 80-minute performance here. I don't see who takes him off the bench looking at the Roosters bench. So I think 80 minutes of Connor Watson at hooker can create stuff, can play in the middle, make heaps of tackles. I think he could be a sneaky pot option. Only 0.9% of the top 10% of Supercoaches own him as well.
Worth noting as well with Connor Watson, it was a throat injury. So, I don't know what his rehab looked like, but I'd assume he could still run around and get around the park and that, and he should be ready to go, you'd imagine, after missing a few weeks of footy. I do think he's a massive chance of that Blues number 14 spot, though, Rando.
Interesting.
Is why I would not be willing to jump on early. I definitely wouldn't. I think if he misses next week and he's available for round 16 for the Roosters, he's a great buy, but I think he's a real sniff.
Oh, wow. Interesting news. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. Hamole Olakau'atu only played about 23 minutes on the weekend for Manly, has been named to play this weekend, encouraging one for owners there. A big one, Fletcher Sharp retains the fullback spot at the Newcastle Knights. Now, I sold David Armstrong last week. There was chat last week that he was, ready to put pen to paper, or talks were very positive about him re-signing with the Knights. The news as recently as this afternoon is that David Armstrong asking for a release from the Knights. Big implications for Supercoaches, because if that is the case and Fletcher Sharp looks to hold that fullback spot, well, it's a line through Armstrong and its catcher.
Yeah, absolutely. I think talking to the Roosters from what I was hearing as well, so he might be seeing a bit more gold on that side of the fence. I thought, I felt sorry for David Armstrong. Fletcher Sharp absolutely brained it. I know they went down the Knights, but Sharp was definitely one of the highlights there. They've got such a good stock of fullbacks at the moment, but as you mentioned, if he's asking for a release, doubt he gets a starting spot back.
Yes, yeah. And, the reason I sold the Knights, missing round 16. They play 19, miss 16, I'm pretty sure. Let me double check that. Where are we here? Apologies. So, we'll find it in a second, Rando. Get on that for us, mate.
Yeah, we'll do.
I'm all over the shop. But yes, anyway, I sold anyway. And if that sort of news is confirmed, I think it's not worth holding out until round 19 for it. What do you got for us?
Yeah, absolutely. They're not playing round 16.
Yeah, not 16. So he's there for 19, one potentially worth holding on there, but it sounds less and less like he is a hold at this stage. Also at the Knights, Dylan Lucas on the bench, played centre last week, scored a double and was really good. Stood up a couple of times in defence, but he was also a back rower made to move to centre. So, you can forgive that. Kai Pearce-Paul and Tyson Frizzell named on the edges. Jaden Brayley named to start. Doesn't really help me this week, Jaden. Mate, needed that last week, so whatever. Phoenix Crossland on the bench, as was named last week. So, yeah, not ideal. I don't really care. Mate, let's move on to the hot topics for the week. And the number one most traded in player, Latrell Mitchell, 834K, 87 points per game, 40 break even. The big question is Origin. Because, as I said, the reason I didn't get on is because if he gets picked for the Blues, he misses round 16, 17 and 19 at a minimum. That's a lot of money to have on your bench for 3 games, especially when there are so many great fullbacks available, or at least will be a few coming back in coming weeks as well. So, I suppose, what are your thoughts on Origin? Do you think he plays? Secondly, as a buy this week? Because with a 40 break-even against the Broncos, I don't think you need to go on him this week.
No, absolutely. I think definitely he just put up his hand for the New South Wales Origin gig. I mean, Madge would be silly not to pick him with Suaalii out for this one. Crichton can easily sit at that right centre and Latrell at left centre. So I think he's all but certain for an Origin spot.
All but certain?
All but certain. All but
Jeez,
certain. Like, it'd be silly. And I'm a Queensland fan. I'm just trying to make sure that you guys have a chance to send it to a decider at least.
Scalding hot tea,
absolutely.
mate. And it is in glass. I can do the double banger to
Oh,
you.
jeez.
Yeah.
The widescreen would be good for that one too. I just think for me, I've got Latrell personally. I think I'm going to hold him throughout the Origin period at this time, and then probably offload Drinky with his run home. But we'll get to that with that listener question. But the moment Latrell, I think, is going to play Origin, and I think that for me personally, having him, I'm going to hold him.
Yeah. Obviously, 100% hold. I just think in terms of the buy this week, if you buy this week, I don't know why he's the number 1 most traded in. Like, I know he scored 150. I know he's on a tear with that 87 average, but he's playing Brisbane this week. I know they've conceded a few points and whatnot of late, but at the end of the day, they're still a very, very good football team with a very, very good defensive unit. At the end of the day, the Bunnies have been terrible this year.
Yep.
So I just think with Latrell, let's say you get him this week and he gets 100. With that break-even of 40, you might go up 30-odd K. But if he gets 100 this week against the Broncos, he's also probably killed it, in which case he plays Origin. Then you've got 860K on your bench for around 16, 17, 19. In fact, I think you probably sell him. So I don't see why you need to buy him this week. If you got him last week, congratulations, you got the 150, happy days. But I don't like the number 1 most traded in player this week. Number 2, Jahrome Hughes, a bloke I was very close to getting last week. Did not. 674K, 74 points per game average, 30 break even. In great form. Storm are looking good and, more importantly, scoring points. Hard to knock back on at that price.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's playing really well. Great matchup this weekend against the Wires. He scored 70-plus points in 7 of his last 8 games against them. So he's going to look to score big. You look at Melbourne's draw as well. They missed the round 19 game, but you got round 16 coverage there with Jahrome there too. So I think, like I mentioned, I'm very surprised that Latrell's being brought in this late, but Jahrome Hughes just makes sense. And what we've been seeing is a lot of people going from, believe it or not, Lockie Galvin to Jahrome Hughes, which is some jump.
Yeah. I mean, like, on face value, it seems like a good trade, doesn't it? I also look at, Rando, my round 16 numbers are now really good. So that's one of them major buy rounds where only your top 13 scoring players play. I think I've already got like 15 or 16 for it. Round 19, it's the hard one. And teams will be in different boats, but I think generally teams will be relatively comfortable for that one. So I'm looking like Galvin covers 16 and 19. Hughes, he does only cover around 16. So I just don't know if he actually helps my team that much. That being said, with the 74 average and the form he's in, there's no reason why he's not a good buy at that value, but I just don't know if he helps my side and why I'm not that keen on him. Mate, number 4, Zach Lomax, 736K, an 83-point average for the season, 31 break-even, coming off that massive 170 and just a huge, huge score for owners, one of the highest scores of the season. What's your take here? He plays Manly this week at Brookie Oval. He's then on Origin duty. He will come back and play the Dolphins into the Roosters. Then he misses round 19 due to Origin and then round 20 on the bye. So it's not chasing last week's points because he's averaging at 83. He's killing it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You're still bringing in a player at an okay price. He had bottomed out pretty well because he had 240s in 2 or 3 weeks prior. You're still bringing in a bloke that's missing a lot of action.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's still to peak in price as well. I think he's going to peak during the Origin period as well. And the fact that he's only playing, what we're looking at there, 2 games, and the Roosters is one of the games as well. And the Roosters are one of the best defensive teams against conceding points to right wingers on top of that. So for me, I just don't really see him. I think you've missed the boat by now, in my eyes, and you're just going to have to wait until after the Origin period around that. Well, Penrith, Melbourne, maybe potentially bring him in for the Dogs if you are looking to bring him in, but I don't see any other reason to.
Yeah. I don't know if he missed the boat, and the reason for that is the 170-point score, so the break-even of 12. Yeah. Because if you bring him in, you could be on, all right, I'm locking in a season keep here with Zach Lomax, and I want to get him before he hits 750, potentially 800K, if he can back it up with a good score this week. But after this week, he misses 3 of 5 weeks, plus that Roosters matchup in there, and we're assuming he backs up against the Dolphins in round 17 from Origin 2. So if he weren't to back up from that, I think if he gets through unscathed, he'll be fine. But if there's a head knock or anything there, I'm not convinced on it. That being said, the numbers are impressive this season, and I can see why people are doing it. The run home for the Dragons is quite good. But yeah, I think I'm happy to avoid Zachy Lomax. Number 5, Cody Walker, 597K, 58 point per game average, break even of 95. Cody, look, he hadn't had a great Supercoach season to this point, but he's punched out back-to-back scores of 99 and 103. It is a tough game against the Broncos this week. Cam Murray back on deck, that'll certainly help. What are your thoughts? Available at 5'8" only.
I think that he's back. Probably like what I saw from the Rabbitohs last week is that they completely changed their whole side of attack. They usually are left edge dominant. They scored 46% of their tries on the left edge coming into that game. They changed it all around and started hitting on the right side. 3 of their first 4 opening tries were all right side dominated. Latrell was swinging down the right side. So it just seems that I think that the Rabbitohs have completely changed their attacking style, which will definitely suit when they come up against the Broncos because they are terrible on their left edge defense. So I do like Cody Walker coming into this, but I just feel like if Latrell's not behind the play, it's a different story. And especially if Latrell's going to miss that Origin period as well, it could be interesting. But you do get the round 16, round 19 coverage, so I do get that as well.
The coverage is the thing.
Yeah.
If you only played one of the 2 major buy-ins, I'd go, look, it's 2 good weeks in an otherwise disappointing season. As you said, you add in that if they do lose Latrell to Origin duties, if they lose anyone else to Origin duties. But yeah, for a player of Cody's calibre, in the form he's in recent weeks at the very least, covering 16 and 19 at under 600K, I understand the buy. You'd imagine at 5'8", lots are going from Lachie Galvin to him. It does feel like a good trade.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you get that coverage that you've been worried about as well with the Tigers on that round 19 side. And they got Manly on that round 16 game. And then in that round 19 game, they got the Finns.
Manly without DCE, probably Ola.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no knock on the Cody trade.
Yeah.
No knock on that one. Number 6, we spoke about Epic Chorus. Our number 7, my boy and my saviour, Tyron Wisher. 501K. 122 points on the weekend. That was just a joy to watch. A 3-round average of 74 points. I'll get his break even up shortly, but interesting one. I brought him in for the Origin period. Very happy about it. Dual 5'8" halfback was the big factor. So there's money incoming, obviously, for him there. Break even of negative 38. What do you reckon?
I haven't seen much out of Tyron. I mean, 122, absolutely amazing. But before that, he had 60, 40. Obviously, you can't take into account some of the games where he's come off the bench. But in those last 2 where, he's starting at halfback, he is scoring tries, which is great. But what happens when he doesn't score a try? What happens if he has a game where he doesn't do that? That's my only concern with Tyron.
Break even negative 16, sorry. Rando, this is what happens when he doesn't score a try or get attacking stats. And this is why Smart Supercoaches brought him in a few weeks ago. 42 in base on the weekend, 32 in base the week before that, 26 before that, 38 before that. He's a runner. He makes a lot of tackles. He busts tackles. He's just a goer. That's why.
Amen.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is he a buy or not? It's hard because... for a 90, a tick under 100K cheaper than Cody Walker. Cody, you're locking in that round 19 number as well. Cody is a potential season keeper. Tyron Wishart, we know, is keeping the seat warm for Cam Munster, who returns probably just after Origin 3. So is he a better buy than Cody, or say even if it's via Jules or at halfback, Jerome Hughes? Jerome Hughes, I suppose the other factor about him is he isn't a season keeper because we're all going to want Cleary and Nicho once they're both fit and firing and available for the run home from sort of round 20 onwards. Jerome Hughes is a great buy up until sort of Cleary returns, but as soon as Cleary's back, that's a trade you're going to want to make. So, yeah, I would probably lean to say Cody Walker and probably Jerome Hughes over Tyron Wishart if I was getting them in. But yes. And I suppose the other thing at halfback, if anything does happen to Nathan Cleary on return, or his return gets delayed, or something happens to Nicho Hynes, he's dealing with a calf injury, maybe Hughes can become a keeper. So, there we go. Another one helping the Stallions out at the moment. Benny Trebojevic, the number 10 most traded in player, 473k. His dual 2RF centre, 3-round average of 64 and a break-even of 1. Dished out the goods on the weekend against the Penny Panthers. I was surprised to see him as the 10th most traded in, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had him in from day dot. He's been performing really well for me, seeing him grow up at the rising. But yeah, people bringing him now. I think Manly do have a really favourable draw for the next couple of matches. So I do understand that bringing in. I was looking at Tommy Talau and seeing how he was like up there as well with some of the most traded in players. So completely understand that drive. You look at Manly's draw coming up: Dragons, Rabbitohs, Cowboys, Knights, Titans. Really easy in the next 6 weeks. So completely understand that from a draw perspective. But, as someone who already owns them, I guess I don't really have too many feelings about it. But bringing someone in is a bit more interesting. Yeah,
I was saying, mate, I owned from day dot and just sort of held through the little injury. He missed 2 or 3 weeks there at one point. Very happy about it. And to be fair, he was a very valuable number on the weekend. But God, if we can have him through round 16 and 19 for Manly, he'll just that'll be unbelievable. At the same time, hopefully peaking at that 550 ambitious, but maybe even 600k if he can jag some attack with some of those softer games. But mate, it's his injury history.
Yeah,
we all know it. He's been injured. He's already done his hammy this season. We know that him and Tommy Turbo, they can't take a trick, and I just don't think he's worth 473k with the injury risk because it's just over and over again with him, the poor bugger. So hope for my side and for Supercoach owners and for Benny himself that he can stay in the park, but history hasn't been good to him with his body. Mate, on to the most solds. We've spoken about Lockie Galvin. We've spoken about David Armstrong. Number 3 at your Cowboys, Scott Drinkwater, 771k. 77 point per game average, a break-even of 109. I'm an owner, you're an owner. Really surprised me to see Drinky so high up this list.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he comes into a few games that are going to be really tough. This weekend alone is going to be tough. Canberra in Canberra. We haven't seen a fullback at Canberra at night, an opposing fullback, score over 50 so far this season. Only twice have they scored 50 in the last 6 games as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes. Honestly, he's not to skip into my trades and skippers, but he's looking on the trading block at the moment. And I know he's delivered so many times, but I just can't see him delivering in the next couple of weeks against Canberra, Penrith. Manly, Dogs and Sharks could be a different story, but by that point, I think there's other players I kind of want to move him on to.
Interesting. I'm thinking hold. I mean, even before last week, he had back-to-back tons, and you mentioned hard fixtures and whatnot, but he tonned up against the Roosters, tonned up against the Tigers, probably less relevant, but big scores there. Before that, he had a 5-round average with what that would have been near enough, about 90 to 95. No good on the weekend. They got flogged. The problem is with the Cowboys, they're so up and down, you don't know what to expect, but this is a side who have had a lot of down games this season, and Drinky still managed to score well. Penrith round 17, out in Penrith. It's on Sunday. It still looms as a very decent resting option for Penrith players, especially against the Cowboys, who they'll back themselves against. If they do rest players there, it becomes a lot more friendly game for the Cowboys and Scotty Drinkwater. Manly round 18. It is a tough draw. I'm tempted to hold, but I get it. I understand why people are flipping him. That being said, I assume a lot are doing him to Latrell Mitchell. give it a week. I just don't see why it needs to be done yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess having both players and talking about my strategy with Latrell and him being the keeper, because I got to let one of them go, that's kind of where I was coming from with the Drinky out.
And Cowboys don't play round 16 or 19. The next two major buy-ins. So he doesn't offer buy coverage, which makes sense in that regard. Head-to-head players who don't play the buys, Drinky's a fine hold, I think, for that reason. Number 4, Josh Curran, 530k, dual front row, second row, 57 point per game average. Mate, I was out at the game on Easter Monday, 45,000 there.
Brilliant
I think might have been Matty saying or something like the biggest crowd since 2014 regular season, which is just incredible between those two clubs. But any NRL game.
Yeah.
A nasty head knock for Josh Curran. Looked very scary at the time. Sounds like it is just run-of-the-mill, Cat 1, HIA failed, obviously. The Dogs have the bye this week anyway, so they also play round 16. Unless there's symptoms lingering from that or it's particularly bad, I don't know what his history's like with him. He should be available for round 16. That dual position, available in front row, and I think he's a hold.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if it's just a HIA, then that's definitely hold worthy. As you mentioned, round 19 he's not playing, but he's got the round 15 off. I think you just keep him on board. I don't think you need to be chopping and changing, whether it's you got him in front row or second row. I think he's definitely someone you'd want to hold on to because he's getting good minutes.
Rock solid, huge motor, decent minutes, and just invaluable buy coverage.
Yeah.
So I think so. Mate, we did have a bit of a chat about Nicho Hynes, but he's still the 6th most sold player. 208 break even. I think people are looking at that a little bit too much. I was going to say arguably the best player in Supercoach. I mean, he's been the top scorer 2 years in a row, so I think it's fair to say he's 85 average this season, and the Sharkies have a really good draw to come. I think people are just focusing on the 208 break even too much. 2 trades to get him out and then get him back in again. In your head, I mean, you think he probably plays Origin again, in which case he misses round 16, potentially doesn't back up round 17, he'd miss round 19. I'm not convinced he does. I'm holding. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know why you're trading him out now after the multiple weeks that you could have gotten rid of him. He comes into this one averaging 102 at Shark Park in his 4 games there with a min score of 75. He's going to go big this week. So I do see... I just don't know why you'd move him on. You've obviously you just got to commit to the bid at this point, really. So as you mentioned, we're on the fence of whether he's playing Origin or not. So I understand that. But at this point, I think you just got to hold him, as you mentioned. If you're already holding him, just hold him.
I think there's far more chance that he doesn't play Origin than he does. There's only one humble man's opinion, mate. But if you did sell him, he comes out and tons up against the Dolphins, which is every chance with Nicho Hynes at Shark Park, as you said, good numbers around it. And then he missed Origin selection. He misses round 16 anyway. I think you'd just be filthy about it. So, mate, housing loans and Supercoach, they've got a bit in common. Don't know if you knew that, but they do.
There you go.
Sometimes the rates soar, much like Nicho himself, much like his break even of 208. And you think, shit, you don't know what to do. You hit the panic button, you trade, and you can regret the move. Sometimes the rates look like Lehigh Hopawades, a negative 63 break even, and you're absolutely filling your pockets with cash. Some of the numbers going around are pretty daunting after the RBA's announcement, but there's help available with Mortgage Choice SCW. Whether it's an investment property or the place you're living, the team can run the numbers to work out how much they can save you on your loan. Once Paddy's done with his work, Nicho's break will look like it's negative 60 odd, and your payments will be the same. Usually, it costs you $129, but if you mention SC Playbook sent you, it's completely free of charge. So flick the team a message on Instagram at mortgagechoice_SCW or give them a buzz on 02 9521 1611. No matter where in Australia you are based. Now, Rando, my throat is on its way out, so let's have a deep dive. Rattle off a few of your
Have you touched your tea yet? That looks pretty full.
Yeah, I was actually absolutely steaming hot in here when I started drinking that. So it's been a big day. We're going on about 6 hours of podcasting for a Tuesday, so not too bad. Mate, run us through your players, and then we'll flip it around a bit. I'll have a bit of a say on them after you drop some hot stuff.
Beautiful. We'll start with Ronaldo Mulitalo. Do this in in chronological order of the games. He comes back into the frame now that we see Braden Trindle and Nicho Hynes, that combo named in the halves. Sharks winger has averaged 90 points when those two are his halves combination, playing with a minimum score of 56. So I know a lot of people earlier on seeing Ronaldo's recent scores, and they've been pretty sour lately. 31 last week. So there is an opportunity here. He comes back to his best with Trindle and Hynes operating on both sides.
I like him a lot, and he's very much on my radar. I ended up flicking Benny Trbojevic down to 2RF last week with... what did I make? One trade, I think it was. I don't remember. A long time ago. So I'm going to flip Benny back up if I want him. But, yeah, it's like the Sharkies draw. So they go Dolphins this week, bye in round 16. That's relevant for my team and a reasonable amount out there. Comes back against the Doggies, who, granted, have been defensively very good this year, but still, there's far more terrifying opposition out there. Titans, Tigers, it's a good draw. They then have the bye in round 20. Cowboys, Rabbitohs, Titans, Knights, Dragons. Their draw home is amazing. And circling back to Nicho Hynes, not owning him for those games, he's got a 208 in him.
100%.
But Ronaldo Mulitalo, I'm glad you quantified the numbers there, because I was going to do a bit of a deep dive into it for beers and break-evens tomorrow. You've done the hard work for me. But he said as soon as Trindle dropped out, and Nicho just became even more dominant on the right edge, and Daniel Atkinson was there, the try scoring dropped off for him. But before that, he had 8 tries in 7 or 6 games or something.
Crazy.
So I like the buy, mate.
It does, yeah, absolutely. And I'm definitely someone I'm looking to. And Tigers in round 19 with that round 19 coverage, please take my money.
Break even 59. So it doesn't have to be this week.
No.
It can definitely wait till round 17.
100%.
Particularly, if Nicho does miss Origin.
Oh, gosh, take him in. Take him in. Feed him, give him some tea.
Yeah.
Make him feel at home. All right.
Who's next, mate?
We'll go on to the next one. Joseph Tarpanay. He's gained some interest as well. One of the most traded players in by the top 10% of Supercoaches as well. Interestingly, he averages 85 points when he plays 60-plus minutes this season. That's opposed to his 63 season average. He's played 60-plus points in each of his last 2 games and in 4 games this year. So I do think that we're seeing Tarpanay get more minutes here. I know Corey Horsburgh is lingering from a return, but his minutes weren't really changed up that much with him there. If he plays more minutes, Tarpanay, he's only scored once, and that was against the Finns this year. He could be scoring more points and get back to that Supercoach relevancy that, historic Supercoaches would know he's capable of.
Yeah, I don't mind him, and he often does become relevant about this time of year, because Ricky Stewart, certainly with Josh Papali'i back in the day when he was a bit younger, and even Joe Tarpanay in recent years, he's built his middle forwards up throughout the year. He doesn't gas them early, and I love the way he does that, and builds them into bigger minutes in the back end of the season, preserves them a little bit, and Tarpanay, he's done that with him. So I probably just want to see the minutes a few more weeks in a row. Like even in the last game where he played 63 minutes, Hudson Young was in Origin camp. Obviously no Corey Horsburgh, but Adam Mariota played on the edge. So with Hudson back there, Mariota goes back to the middle. What happens when Big Red comes in? But trending in the right direction, I wouldn't go early, because if he does end up back in that 50 to 55 minute role max, or even potentially a bit less, he's not probably a great option there, but he's trending.
Absolutely, and definitely someone to wait and watch and see, to see if those 60 minutes just keep passing by, because before that, 52, 44, 45 minutes. So it's trending in the right direction. The next one I've got here is looking at the Waz Storm game, and someone who's come up sneakily here is Nick Meaney. He doesn't mind a game against the Warriors. He scored in all 4 games he's played against them for the Storm. 6 tries in those 4 games. Scores of 61, 117, 50, and 71. But more interestingly here, it's not just his game stats against the Warriors. It's the fact he has a 3-round average of 92 following 108 points against the Knights. Now, I thought he'd only just picked up the goal kicking, but he's been goal kicking for a while now. But some of the points he's been racking up through goal kicking, I think he had 32 against Parramatta, 24 against Newcastle as well. Obviously, he had the double and the single try beforehand, but He's starting to score and rack up some points here, and he could be of interest.
Yeah, and that's like a firing Storm team, certainly with ball in hand. There's a super pod play in there. Looking at lows of the season, 40, 45, 33, 44. He's never really interested me, but if the Storm continue in this trajectory and you think they're getting Ryan Papenhuyzen back in coming weeks, Cam Munster back end of the Origin periods, they've got a lot of firepower to come back in there. Not for me, but I can see why people would be very enticed into it. What's their draw coming up? He said Warriors were a decent record there. Dolphins, that'll be without Harry Grant and probably just him, Xavier Coates. But yeah, Raiders, Tigers, Roosters, Eels, Dragons. Not a bad draw. Not for me, but the numbers read well.
It'd be interesting to see because you see the scores kind of spike up after in that para game where Munster does go off the field. So with Munster out, it seems like they're hitting their right edge a lot more compared to their left edge.
Well, they've got all the firepower, don't they, in terms of Jerome Hughes, Eli Katoa, so it makes sense.
Yeah. The next one we've got here, continuing on the right edge trajectory, is Joey Manu and Dom Young. Obviously, you went to the Bulldogs game. You saw the right edge of the Dogs just absolutely rip apart the left edge defence of the Parramatta Eels. The Roosters love that right edge with Joey Manu and Dom Young. They're conceding the most points to right centres and right wingers. 80 to right centres and 64 points to right wingers. The average of the right centre goes up to 93 if that opposing team is the favourite. Joey Manu looks very good right here, but even Dom Young, it could be a long night for Para fans watching the game, but for owners, it could be something to get on with Joey Manu and Dommy there.
Rando, I do not need to be enticed into a Joey Manu captaincy play this week. As an owner, that fills me with joy, but man, I cannot get a captain's pick to save me this season. Drinky last week, I had Manu the week before for his 50. The curse runs too strong. I thought I'd shaken it into that captaincy, but it's still lingering there somewhere. It's enticing though.
Mate, if Blake Wilson can score 100 against them, surely Joey Manu gets 150 and Critter scored 100 too.
Yeah, all right. Tempting. Captain shortly.
Alrighty, last one of the list. Ruben Garrick obviously continues to flex with his 93 against Penrith, even so that he missed 4 goals and still scored such a high amount. 92 and 93 are his scores in his last two day games. Taking away his 1 against Penrith, he's averaged 103 at Brookvale at right centre in 5 games. Now, we were talking about Zach Lomax earlier. Ruben Garrick, what do you think about him?
Mate, I actually pulled the trigger and brought him last week.
Oh, wow,
that was my one trade. So I had some funky dual stuff going on there. But I traded Trey Fuller out and got Ruben Garrick in. And the reason behind it was, and on the show last week, I had no idea about trades because we wanted to see what happened out of Origin and backups and all sorts. There was so much water to go under the bridge before working out trades and obviously recording before the Origin game happened. But there weren't a lot of buys that I was particularly keen on. And I was like, all right, who's going to offer me Origin coverage that's a keeper? A buy period coverage that's a keeper. And just about the only bloke I landed on was Ruben Garrick. And I was keen on him. Then I go, let's have a look at his draw. Looked into it.
Crazy.
He now goes the Dragons, the Rabbitohs, the Cowboys, the Knights, the Titans. They're his next 5 weeks. I'm just like, oh, goodness. So covering 16 and 19 with that draw, with his base, with his power, I just thought, you know what, let's do it. So I ended up doing that. And because I had 3 Bulldogs at prop this week in Hughes, Farmasili and Josh Curran, I knew I was going to be front row short. So I did do 2 trades last week. I got Samuel Finu in with his dual positioning. So this week, I'm not left to play a short at front row. Finu also covers 16 and 19. So not necessarily a keeper, but with that dual flexibility between Curran and Finu, 80 minutes on an edge. He's a bloke that, with that coverage, as trades get lower and lower, if he keeps that 80-minute edge roll with Bateman and Papali'i out long term, he could be there at the end of the season for me with a bit of luck.
100%. And I think it's great buy-in for Garrick now, and it's someone I'm tossing up with that fullback duel as well on top of that, and the buy-round coverage and the draw on top. It just seems really enticing for a potential trade-in for Scotty Drink.
I wanted to antipod him, being just a centre. He's done majority of his damage in his career on the wing, bit at fullback, and I thought there's been, even this season, a few lower ones at centre, but when I saw the draw, I just went...
Yeah, 93 against Penrith when they only went down his side once. You got to be kidding me. And he missed 4 goals too.
Yeah,
crazy.
Exactly. Mate, very good stuff. Now let's get stuck into our trades and skippers for the week. What are you looking at?
I think I just talked myself into that one. Oh, you just talked myself into that one. I think my main trade this week will be Scotty Drink. It's been a great season. Really enjoyed the ride, the ups, the downs, the whole lot of it. But I think it's time to move on to someone even hotter, and that's Ruben Garrick.
Fair play.
Imagine
if Ruben Garrick had Scotty Drinkwater's eyes. Game over. He wouldn't be playing footy. He'd be in Milan or something. So Drinky to Rubes.
Drinky to Rubes.
Just the one?
Just the one for this one, yeah.
I am looking at sitting on my hands at the moment and saving my trades. As I said, I've got about 16 odd players for next week. Fully quite a strong 17 this week. My weakest player and my 17th man in my squad will be either Dallin Witteni Lesniak or Ben Trebojevic. After that, it's someone like Sufai Longo, or I'm very happy with my squad. So, looking like making none. I will assess a few things over the course of the week. I said prep time this week has been pretty minimal coming into the podcast, but I have had a good look at my team and had a good read of your article, Rando. You did step up and do the... You jumped in on my baby, my team's now, so I don't think I've missed it in about 4 years, but today it just had to be done. So, I'm looking at using none. Plenty of numbers for next week. I've got 19 trades in the bank. I just don't think I really need to trade this week. I don't need numbers for next week, but at the same time, I do want to keep my options open. Firstly, if there's injuries or surprise origin call-ups or anything, but for potentially like Latrell next week, like if he does miss origin, I'll find a way to get him in, which will probably take 2 trades because I need cash elsewhere. So yeah, I think I'm just happy to wait until next week. And honestly, if Latrell plays origin and I don't need to do anything next week, could save a few. So that's where we're sitting. Your skippers?
Captain, like I mentioned, I really do like this right edge against the Parramatta Eels this weekend. Personally, don't have Joey Manu. I made that trade out way too early, and I should have done it for Val Holmes. Instead, I think Dom Young's going to have a massive one here. I hate putting it on wingers, but I'm just going to back Dom Young here to get a few tries. It's going to be relatively dry. It's going to be wet during the day, but should be dry at night. So I'm thinking Dom Young. A big gamble, but I need a few Tyson gambles here to pull myself up. Yeah. I know. If it pulls off, I could be looking at a Zach Lomax-like score or something like that.
Your numbers did entice me a little bit, mate. Look, the way I'm going with my skippers, it's going to be wrong. So I've got Nicho Hynes VC into a C Ruben. Sorry, no, I haven't. Into a C Dave Fafita for now. Really tempted on a straight C on Nicho. Just that calf lingering injury. But after people sold him off, home game at Shark Park against the Dolphins, the only problem is Thursday night. If he goes poorly or pops his calf, just ruins the whole weekend and it's Thursday night.
Absolutely.
I think the smart money there is, though, Nicho VC, Dave Fafita looking at C at this stage.
Yeah, love it.
Mate, a few questions before we wrap it up for the podcast. First one from a great man, Anton Posser. Who are your top fullbacks for the run home? Let's assume Walsh and Edwards are playing Origin for game 2 and 3. Let's assume all the options are fit. So I think we can talk our short-term fullback plan. To be fair, we've probably touched on our short-term fullback plan. You certainly have with your trades. And then our longer-term one. So, I mean, short-term, I've got Drinkwater and Garrick there at the moment. Next week, as I just mentioned, I'd be looking at flicking Garrick back down to CT Dub and getting in, if Trell were to be available, maybe James Tedesco and making a big move there. Whether or not I need to do it, let's just see how things play out this weekend. But that's my short-term go, and you're pretty set because you're happy to run Garrick at fullback for the short term?
Yeah, short term and for the near future as well. I mean, he's still putting good scores on good teams as well, so might not be need for a trade there. And then, as I mentioned, Latrell Mitchell, play it by ear. I just feel like he's just going to get that Origin spot. But I'm willing to hold on to him for a little more time. The only other player I'd be looking to Tedesco with that run home.
Yes.
And if he doesn't play Origin as well, I could be lured the next week to possibly bring him in and just be settled with those two fullbacks.
And even if something did happen, say Teddy were to miss selection and then like he'd be missing, he plays round 16, which is huge, but he misses round 19 due to a Roosters bye anyway, so you can cop that. So I do like either of those in the short term. We'll see what's happening next week though. And then longer term, it's very hard because two of the blokes top of the radar will be Tom Trbojevic coming back from injury. Does he come back at centre? Does he come back at fullback? What happens? Ryan Papenhuyzen, how does he look on return from injury? But all things being equal, and we're assuming all the options are fit, and I'm looking basically post-origin period, Tommy Trbojevic is due back around about round 18, 19. From round 18, Manly play Cowboys, Knights, Titans, Roosters into a bye, Raiders, Warriors, Tigers, Bulldogs, Sharks. Like, it's a pretty good run home. I still just love the upside of Tom Trbojevic. There'll obviously be the injury concern there, but if you can come back and play one or two games and look the goods, I don't mind him. And I'm obviously such a big Reece Walsh fan, and it hurt me selling him, but from round 20 onwards, post-origin, Walsh goes into the Knights, Dogs, Titans, Cowboys, a bye, Eels, Dolphins, Storm in the final round of the season, which they're notorious for resting players if they aren't in a position to move sort of up or down the ladder. I think even when they were in a position to move up, they've just rested players in the past. So it's a pretty good run home for Reece Walsh. And that bye in round 24, do they play the last three games without resting the Broncos? They're also not humming this year, so they might be paying for a top four spot and not have the luxury of resting. So they're probably the two I'm eyeing off, but as I said, a lot to play out between now and then. Yeah,
absolutely. And when I wasn't too sure what week Turbo was coming back, but if it's as early as round 18, definitely like him. And surely, I know there's been rumours that he'd go back to centre, but I feel like fullback, it just suits the Manly team at the moment just to have him there. I don't know, because they've got Hopper White and they're not playing Cooler at fullback. It just makes sense that Turbo slots back there.
Yeah, well, maybe it's like a 2-week thing where they're just going to get some Ks in the league, some match fitness. Yeah.
Can see that.
But yeah, that's where I'm leaning at the moment. One from Wesley. Who is the better buy over the origin period? Dallin, Watenius, Lesniak or Ronaldo Mulitalo?
Well, you got to go with DWZ because you at least know who the halves are. T. Marie and Sean Johnson. Whereas Ronaldo, if Nicho's not playing Origin, Ronaldo. Easy every day of the week. If Ronaldo is playing Origin, if Ronaldo playing Origin. If Nicho's playing Origin, then I just don't. I think DWZ for me is a bit safer because you know what you're getting.
I like Ronaldo because I've owned Dallin for a long time. And he's starting to repay some faith. He's had back-to-back scores of 80-odd.
Back-to-back tries, which has helped.
Yeah, which has been lovely. One game at fullback, granted. But prior to that, mate, he had a 5-round average of about 30.
Yeah.
He was a nightmare to own. And that was with a full-strength Warriors with Sean Johnson there and Charnze Nicholl-Cookstad. So I'm just like, I'll probably play him this week over Ben Trbojevic, but I don't do it with any confidence as my 17th man. The Warriors are looking great. If they maintain this form and they don't go back into that slump, they've been up and down all season, he could be a great buy, but he could easily come out and go 30-30. Who knows? So, look, I like Ronaldo Mulitalo in a firing Sharks outfit. They had a couple of losses there, but they're still putting points on the board. And Nicho probably there, a really soft run. I like Ronaldo Mulitalo. The other thing, Mulitalo plays 19. Dallin misses 19. He plays 16. So I think he's a better buy coverage option probably than Dallin. Mate, one for you. One from Troy Rogers. Is it time to move off Cowboys players with a tough run and poor form? They're already missing around 16 and 19. You mentioned you're selling Drinky, so you're not littered with confidence in your boys.
Yeah, I definitely can't turn around and say, nah, it's not keep him. But I think that, I think the buys coming through, the run home, you most likely got Origin players from the Cowboys. Maybe Helam Lukey might be another option that you might be having and running with, to which he scored 53, which might not seem much, but I think it was the most the Cowboys came up with last week. So for me, I think for the big money players like Val and stuff, I mean, you've got Val. Are you holding Val till the bitter end?
I'm definitely holding Val, yeah. And look, he hasn't set the world alight form-wise. I think he might have turned up a couple of games ago. Anyway, he's just the Cowboys need him to back
Yeah.
up, and he always backs up from Origin. So I don't feel like there's much, barring the knock in Origin, I don't feel like there's a risk of him not backing up.
Yeah, fair enough. I think just the run home in general, I mean, Scott Drinkwater, as you mentioned, he can pull out 100 against the Roosters and the like, but it's just been too much of a roller coaster ride for me. So that's why I've jumped off a fair few. I wouldn't have many in there, but yeah, definitely something to look into. I'm going to keep probably Tommy Dearden for the meantime because I just don't have a better 5'8" option at the moment. But yeah, for the most part, might be time.
Yeah, like I'm a Reece Robson owner and I'm very happy with him. And at the moment, my plan is probably just to hold him to the end of the season because he's given me no reason to suggest otherwise. But, you know, he said Cowboys missing 16 and 19. I could move him to someone like an Appy Coruscant and make a bit of cash next week. So that's an option as well. One from Nicho. Probably Britain, big fan of the pod. When's the next positional update? Unluckily held on to Lane, but if he gets the update, could hold. So the next positional updates, that is where they add any dual positions. If players have played a minimum of 3 games in another position, such as Sean Lane. Round 18, so they do them round, I think it's 6, 12, 18, and that's the last one. So Sean Lane, someone who I held and very reluctantly played on the weekend, got half-decent minutes, was charging through the middle, the offload was back. He got to about 60 points with no major attack, so the Lane train somehow lives to fight another day. But, the next positional updates will be then, and look, I probably don't think Lane is a hold, but if he does get that dual front row, second row, might do a bit of a job there, but we'll see what he can do in front row for the next couple of weeks, and if you can avoid playing him, I recommend do so. One from Junior Glover. Charnze Nicholl-Klukstad, the best buy at fullback for the next 5 weeks. Charnze, I was very close to buying him.
I was very close to buying him too. In fact, if it wasn't for your spiel about Ruben Garrick, I probably would have said that would have been my trade, Scotty to Charnze.
I was tossing up that one last week, and I ended up going with Garrick just because offered 16 and 19, and I was like, I knew Garrick was a keeper, so it made more sense, but I like the Charnze play. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, he averages really well against the Storm, which is quite amazing. 63 points is his average in about 6 games. You got the Titans after that. They leak points to fullbacks left, right and centre. I think the fullbacks tonned up in the last 3 games against them as well. So I've, for the most part, loved Charnze. I love Sean Johnson coming back into the fold there. Helps with his right swing. Loves that right edge and attacking that way. So I don't mind Charnze at all. I don't mind at all.
Even when the Warriors were playing ordinary footy, he was still scoring well. So 100%. If they do continue this form, look out. Mate, next one from Aiden Moore. Went early on Tolutau Kola. Should I be looking to move him on already? Very unlucky Kola owners. Like, had that little injury, missed a week, comes back and Leo Hopewadi gets the fullback spot, which I think surprised most people. Scored 17 on the weekend. For all the reasons we like Garrick and a few Manly players there, you know, he's dual fullback CT dub. He's very affordable, $491K. I'd be tempted to hold him as literally probably my 7th centre wing for that coverage. The other thing is he could end up back at fullback at any given day, in which case people will flock to get him. I'd hold and just try not to play him in my 17 in the meantime unless needed. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think 4 weeks ago I took the risk. Cooler in. He was playing fullback at the time against the Broncos. I think he went on to score like 64 or something in a low-scoring game. Then he got injured the next week. Leo Opawade got the call-up, and since then he's made the fullback position his own. Cooler's slotted back into left centre, which seems like the risk imploded. For me, I just dropped him the moment he got dropped as well. So I guess I'm not someone to go by. 17 points in a side that scored 4 tries down that left edge is a bit scary to think.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure. I mean, I hate getting rid of players as quickly as them coming into my team, but it depends on your trade situation, I guess.
I just think because of the price, I'd hold.
Yeah.
But 17 points.
17, yeah.
The one bonus is, mate, at least they went to his side. Like, there was 4 tries.
I know, exactly.
It was just all cutouts.
Absolutely.
Rando, that'll do us for this week's episode of the SC Playbook podcast. Potentially a little bit shorter tonight, but big day, mate. I think we've
You've done well.
Thanks, mate. I got there just. I didn't have much longer left in me, but
you've drained that tea as well since then.
Yeah,
since I've brought it up.
I've been working on it since getting criticised. The throat was on the way out. Thanks for jumping on, mate, and I'm sure we'll see you again this season.
No, I appreciate you having me on board.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck this weekend.